Welcome to the Authentic Man podcast. I am your host, David Chambers. This is a podcast for men who want more and less from life. More deep connection, more emotional intelligence, more self-awareness, and more great sex. And less heartache, less conflict, less overthinking, and less stress. Creating dating lives, sex lives, and relationships that are incredible and authentic. My deepest goal is that you, the listener, can take away what you hear in this podcast and apply it to your life so that you can experience greater happiness, transformational growth, deeper relationships, and profound sexual intimacy. I believe that as men, we are capable of so much more depth than we are shown or led to believe. So join me as we get deep into this. Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers. I'm a men's dating, relationship, and intimacy coach. I can almost forget my own name. These titles are far too complicated. I help men live, I help men really live, basically. Help them live more of life. I come across a lot of men who are really tapping into fear, and which is stopping them from really living. It's causing them to hide, whether that's in relationships, dating, their careers, in their businesses. And I help them live more. I help them move past that fear and take bold action that's going to get them where they want to. And this episode, I'm joined for a wonderful man, Cyrus. He a Menswork facilitator, transformational coach and healer. And he popped up on my Instagram and we got talking about the work he does around, his native war dance. He's from New Zealand, so the Haka, and he incorporates that into his men's work and his retreats that he runs. And I felt that was a really interesting view because I think the thing with men's work that I see is there's a lot of talk about men's work, but it can sometimes feel very exclusive to being, a white man from America, United States, incorporating ideas. And to see a man bring in something that was definitely diverse from an ethnic culture that we know of, I know of from being from the UK, we know of New Zealand and the Māori people. I thought that was really interesting. As a topic, and he was a wonderful man to speak to. And in this episode we talk a lot about men's work and how we can be playful warriors, which is a really interesting part of what we talk about, because I think a lot of men really struggle with playfulness, or they struggle with being warriors in their lives. And I think he really brings a beautiful flair for that and how that can be done. We talk a lot about authentic relating to people authentically, which is a big part of obviously what I do. We talk a lot about having role models and the importance of those and how you can find those. We talk deeply about the Haka and what it is, the different essences and different parts of it. We talk a lot about Māori culture in terms of how the men show up and what lessons Western men can take in being more connected, more family oriented, more loving, more showing more strength, more determination and more leadership. So we talk about all those sorts of topics. So it's a wonderful episode. Highly recommend. Obviously, I'm here. If any of these topics are stuff that you really want to talk about deeply, feel free to drop me an email at hello@theauthenticman.net, or get me on Instagram, which is @theauthenticman_. We can talk about coaching or something like that. But before we get into the episode, I could let you know about some events I've got coming up. I've got an event that's coming up, which is my Masculinity workshop, which is probably going to be tonight if you're listening to this on the day. And if you've missed it, then I probably will run it again. So it's all going to be about masculinity and how we can sharpen this deeply embodied, deeply connected way of being men that allows us to be powerful, to lead, to be caring, to be nurturing to those around us, which is all really important things. I'm going to really delve into that and around toxic masculinity and how we can not be toxic and where toxicity really comes from. I've also got a masterclass with my partner Orsa. We're running a Tantra for couples, which is always a really beautiful workshop. A lot of couples leave smiling and very happy. And that's coming up on the 20th of March. And the final workshop I've got coming up is a mindful masturbation. And this is really, I talk a lot about porn addiction in the workshop, about what porn addiction is and, how it comes about and how we can move through porn addiction. But I also talk about, creating a self-pleasure practice for men that is mindful and that can connect them to their bodies and their sexuality and increase their sexual energy. Because a lot of men I come across, they really struggle with that part. They watch a lot of porn, they feel disconnected in their bodies and their imaginations, and when they have sex, they're not present. So really, this is all about how to be more deeply present during sex and how you can kind of create that on your own without a partner. It's a wonderful workshop. Everyone that's ever been has really loved it, and I've had really rave reviews, so I highly recommend it. All the links for all these workshops will all be in the show notes below. But without further ado, I'm going to get into the episode. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back with another wonderful podcast episode of another wonderful, open-hearted man. I feel really blessed that I get to speak to so many great men who are leading men in doing the work, not just doing the work themselves, leading other men in doing so. So often we see a world where men are causing destruction and violence, and in a way my world isn't so much like that. I speak to men who are opening their hearts and helping other men get more in contact with themselves, embody this divine and holy masculinity that is within all of us. And I get to speak to another of these men today. I get to speak to transformational coach, healer, and if I say that again, retreat facilitator, Cyrus Henry. How are you doing, brother?
I'm good, brother. I'm really, really blessed to be here and super excited to connect and share. And just relate and just connect. So I'm really, really excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Cyrus reached out to me on Instagram, and I was really, my interest was really piqued by the type of men's work and the foundation for it. Like how he brings his own culture into men's work. Because I think a lot of men's work is very much based on other people's culture. There's some that's based a lot around some of the kind of Andean cultures of Peru, some of the Central American cultures, and even some on some of the West African cultures. But I was really interested in that yours is based on your Maori culture. But before we get into that, because that's just a little teaser for the people. What was your journey to do the work that you do today with men?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a bit of a layer to the story. So I'll try to keep it nice and condensed. So I'm an artist first and forehand, and performing artist. And one of the mentalities that are surrounded with artists is that artists have a shelf life, or like specifically as a dancing being my first modality, and like we have a shelf life. And so I noticed within my friends that were older, kind of reliving their glory days and just constantly reminiscing, like I was always around the world touring. So I just noticed this type of out of the present moment, like constantly reliving the past and like not being unhappy. And so basically I made the decision. I was like, I don't want to be like that. I want to go from a high to a high. And so when I finished my performing arts study, I was like, cool, like what else am I passionate about? How else do I want to serve the world? And I was really deep into self-development and that world of coaching, but I didn't quite resonate fully with it. And so I was looking at Eastern approaches. And so I studied a diploma of energy healing, a 2-year diploma of energy healing, like after my performing arts. So my foundation is energy healing. And throughout my 2 years of energy healing, I was like, how do I want to share this work with the world? And I really sat with that in meditation. And the first thing came up to me was working with men, and then also incorporating my customs from my culture. In that moment, I had no idea why I wanted to work with men. And as I've started to like really surrender to the work over the last 2-3 years, and over the last like 7-8 years of cultivating these exercises and these works and how I want to show up and create these containers, only in the last 2-3 years, as I've been asked, like, why are you doing this? And I realized, I was like, oh, these are the reasons. But the moment when I made that decision that I want to work with men is I didn't know, I just knew that this is what I wanted to do. And the reasons why is because um, I don't know my biological father. All four of my older brothers, us four older ones don't know our fathers. And then the two older ones were adopted out to family and family friends. And then me and my younger one were kind of in between family and aunties and uncles. And then we ended back up with our mother at the ages of 6 and 7 and left around 14. And so during that time of 7 to 14, we got to connect with the stepfather. And within that period of time, of that experience between 7 and 14, things started to get a little bit challenging, if you will. We could really say, it's so interesting every time I say this, it's just like a cliche stepfather of physical abuse. Laid with that is he was also the breadwinner. And so, which was not just for my family, but the extended family. So the strong men that were in my family, also my older brothers, and like my uncles, my mother's brothers, didn't quite step in to like help or like protect, if you will. And so here I am with the what I may identify as a distorted ideal of a male figure or masculine. And therefore I started to look, very cool, like this is how I don't want to be. And so I started to look for male figures and role models. And so that's a bit about the journey of like the reason why I started this learning about this work. I don't know, it was just why. And then as I've started to unravel everything, I'm like, oh, this is why. And so it was like this starting before I knew why that I started this work with him. So yeah.
No, it's not a too unfamiliar story that I think a lot of us men go through. Is we have an experience of older men, father figures in some way, and they don't leave a good imprint on us. And we're yearning for something different, something that is nurturing, that is loving. And we're kind of searching in the world, going, what should a man be? I don't know. I know I don't want to be that man. But what man do I want to be? I don't know, And I spoke to someone a while back, and he does work with young boys in London and in the city of London around gangs and stuff. And he says one of the common problems is that young boys, they have a stepfather or a father or an absence of both. They're left not knowing what a man is. And then someone else steps in, which is usually gang leader, gang members. And they look at these people and go, oh, they're cool. I want to be like that. And he was telling me how, in a way, it's really bad because that's the imprint they take on because they see money and success or stuff like that. He goes, but the other sad thing that can happen is there's no role model at all. And the man never finds anybody and never knows really how to be and always feels lost. And I think, I'm sure you've come across men who are like that in their later years. I've met men in their 50s and 60s that feel that way. And it's why coming to do this sort of work is so important, because it gives us a compass. It gives us some direction on how we can be as men, and gives us a template that is good for the world. Makes a positive difference.
Totally. Yeah, it's really. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Is what it is to be a man, and for whatever reason, growing up, like whether it's nurture or nature, I just like, cool. I want to just take parts of like, oh, I like how this man did this. I want to embody that, integrate that into my being, and starting to just create my own compass of like how I should desire the dream version of me as a man. Within the essence of the masculine energy, it's direction, it's expression. So where's it going? And if it has nowhere to go, it's just lost and confused. I heard a really great way. I was on another podcast, and how this woman expressed it. She was like, the mother brings you into this world and allows you to remember who you are. The father guides you to who you can be. And so if there's no father to guide you to who you can be, then what is there to be? And which is like confusion and lost.
Definitely,
And
definitely.
yeah.
And I think that's what we see a lot in the world now with men, is this confusion, even picking up ways of being that are kind of pushed onto us by society. Or, I think I always say movies have a lot to answer for. The things we've seen and we grew up. I remember growing up in the late 80s and 90s, and you saw the men on TV and they were always so perfect. They always like strong and fast, like very steely, very cold, all those sorts of things. And that kind of imprints that that's what people might go, oh, it's just a movie, young boys don't take that on, but they do, because if you've had no man in your life, no man to look up to and go, wow, then you see James Bond, or you see Jack Reacher, or I'm trying to think of another movie, even like Terminator, or Rocky, and you look at those and go, that's the sort of man I want to be embodied. And even some of the toxic parts of those people, which we might have overlooked at those points, when those get amplified in men, we see a lot of the problems that we experience now with men around their behavior towards women, their behavior towards other men, even.
Totally, yeah. It's I got asked this question once of like, who are your role models during my studies of my diploma? And I'm like, I really, really sat with them, because there's no like actor or sports figure that really stuck out to me. But and I was like, who is it? But what stuck out to me was anime and cartoons. Specifically like Dragon Ball Z, Goku. He trained hard, ate a lot, protected his family, and fought for justice. He was really kind. And so I noticed like a lot of my interest is like, especially because I really enjoy anime, a lot of my interest in anime is the character that fights against adversity. If everybody's still like really beating them down, he still loves them, he still protect them, will train hard and cry and like really express a lot of emotion for injustice. And those are the characters and the stories that I enjoy. And so I just like, really like, I feel a lot of inspiration when I see this character, like his character arc of like just coming in and then everyone starts to accept his heart and like really like sees this. And then maybe there's also a sense of guilt within the other characters because they didn't accept him at first. And so it's always just stuck with me until when I reflect back on traits, values that I wanted to and like really resonated with and just desired to embody.
It's funny, you're not the first person actually to mention Dragon Ball Z to me. One of my coaching clients, exactly that. He said, I think he was on Goku as well. He said, trains hard, protects, he's open with his emotion. He said he's a real beacon, a real role model. And I thought it was interesting that that would be contained in anime, where and actually, isn't it beautiful that it's there? Isn't it beautiful that it's seeded inside there for those kids and young adults that start to consume that, that they start to see this is a different type of role model. This is a type of role model that feels real,
And totally could also go the opposite way, right? Like, oh, I like the villain and all that. And so it's just like, and it's just, I guess, nature and it's just interesting balance of nature and nurture, and what is desired from the essence of the being.
Definitely. And as we alluded to earlier, the work that you do with men on retreats and one-to-one, I imagine, is founded in some of your own cultural traditions. We know in the Western world, in the European world where I'm from, we know of the Haka as a dance that happens, a war dance that happens before rugby. I don't think they do it before football or cricket. It's not such a cricket thing, is it?
They do it for all New Zealand teams. all New Zealand
Really?
sports. Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. But we just see it as that, you know, we know it's a war dance. But I'd love to hear a bit more about it, like its essence, its elements, its meaning.
Yeah, thank you for the question and inquiry. Yeah, Haka like translates to war dance or war cry. So back in the day, it was used as an intimidation technique before we go to war. Haka there are many Haka within New Zealand. Many different tribes have different Haka. There are like two main Haka that are quite widely performed over New Zealand, but like different schools have Haka. The New Zealand Army have a specific Haka, like it's really like fantastic. And many different tribes have different Haka. And so the Haka is not just used as a intimidation technique, it's also used as an acknowledgement. So acknowledgement of any achievements. It's used as a farewell, saying goodbye to the departed, whether it's physically departing or departing from this world. And it's also used as a welcoming. And so how I have incorporated Haka and why I incorporated Haka is, once again, I was like, that was just what came through. And now as I've started to like really hone in on the work, like this is why I'm doing it, because it just came through to me in meditation, like do a Haka. I was like, oh, okay, I'm allowed to do a Haka. So I went through this process of inquiring to my uncle, inquiring to my older brother, like, am I allowed to do a Haka? They're like, yeah, nice. Yeah, it was just this process. I'm like, who's ever created a Haka? And so yeah, and so like how I have incorporated it and why I'm learning more and more and more as to why it came through and why this work has come through. Is once again, it's like viewed upon in the outside world as this like really like strong warrior dance expression before rugby, which is the main perspective reference that everyone has. And the couple of things that I saw, there was like, oh wow, this is really masculine expression, but it's so much more than that. As I've experienced it myself, there's this the word we use is ihi, this isi, which is like a type of adrenaline that rushes through when you express Haka, and it's just like really strong and powerful. And then in the same breath, receiving and standing in front of people that are also doing Haka, I can feel that, and it's an emotional experience. It's a very vulnerable experience to like slap and like touch the body, yell and scream next to other men. And so as I was sitting with like creating this Haka, I was like, okay, cool. Like, firstly, I was trying to approach it with mind and like trying to come up with this like really cool like Haka, and then I was like, this is not gonna work. So I sat in meditation like for 3 mornings, and then it came to me, and it's called the war cry of man, te tangi pakanga te tangata, and it came through really quickly, like within like that meditation, like I basically had the whole thing, and then I gave it to my older brother to like translate properly, and then I was like, I don't speak the language. I know a little bit, but I don't know it fully. And so I was actually using Google Translate, translate, which is a literal translation. What I know from learning about the language is that there are 2 ways that Māori is spoken. There's what we refer to as book Māori or bush Māori. And bush Māori is a more descriptive, layered way of speaking, whereas book Māori is like, this is the microphone. And what I've heard bush Māori is like, this is this object, this item that we use to convey and talk and communicate. And so it's more of a roundabout layered expression. And so I like translated it through Google Translate, then I gave it to my brother for like translate. And the way he translated, I felt the layer or the energy of the words. And I was like, this is why I asked him. And so how I have used the Haka, this Haka specifically, is as a deep emotional release technique, to give men safe, to create safety with men, and beating their chest, roaring and screaming, which and what I've noticed in society today, it's men shouldn't be, not men, like it's been conditioned for men to not yell, to not scream, to not be aggressive, to not be physical. Otherwise, it's looked upon as violent. It's looked upon as maybe too sensitive, too much. So therefore, this suppression energy and program has come in. I'm like, I need to suppress my anger. I need to. It's not safe for me to be my chest. I look like a wild animal. It's not safe for me to roar and scream. Um, and so it's this container of safety, like, hey, let's learn about Haka. And then taking it a layer deeper, as we're learning the translations of the Haka themes, there's themes that are interweaved throughout the phrases of the Haka. And so when we learn a phrase, I speak to the theme that's on that's about that, and then we navigate, facilitate conversation about our own story about that theme. So then we incorporate our own energy within the Haka, because the most important part is not just this warrior masculine expression, is it's a release. So how can we connect deeper with this expression of Haka past the 3D expression and deeper into the heart? So yeah, it's really beautiful. When I witnessed the men coming up, oh yeah, we're gonna do the Haka, we're gonna do this thing, and then we learn the first part, and then when we sit down in circle, and I'm like, let's speak about this. And they're like, oh, and then we share story about that, and then we release it with this expression of Haka. So yeah, yeah, it's a really powerful. Yeah, it's a really powerful technique that is that I feel and see is needed. And like as I learn more, as I share it more, I learn more as to why it has come through. Because I'm also still learning it. I know all about it, like Haka, but at the same time, I'm also like learning deeper layers as to like, oh, this is why. Oh, I get it. Oh, okay. Um, yeah.
Amazing. It's really beautiful because I imagine that, like you said, the men, they come and they're like, yeah, I'm going to do this manly, I'm going to feel like a man, I'm going to do this manly war dance. And I imagine there's probably parts of the lyrics that is really heartfelt, you know,
Yeah.
about one's love for oneself, maybe one's love for the
Mm-hmm.
people you're going to protect, even, you know, honor for one's foe, you know, and these are often the sort of ideas that we don't necessarily respect in everyday Western life. You know, like if we're at work, you know, many a man works and there's not much respect necessary for one's work colleagues. You know, there's not much care for when there is conflict. You know, I imagine there's all these things that kind of encased in the lyrics, in the tradition of the Haka.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally, yeah. And like yeah, one of the like a very common theme within men is the the vulnerability to cry. And so there's a phrase within the Haka that the tears will flow. And so we speak about the theme of crying. And then it navigates that. We speak about the themes of what it means to ask for help. Because another big common theme that I notice with the men is like, I've got to do this by myself. And so the ability to ask for help. And there's another really powerful part which says, look to your left. And then they reply, yes, look to your right, yes. And then all my brothers, then it says, all my brothers, we are one. I say, yes, we are one. Go forward, stay strong. And that's all in Māori, but yeah. And so like yeah, it's really interesting how it came through and it just all made sense. Like the Haka I was creating was, oh wow. And then there's like the themes are like it's the themes that what I've learned are very alive for most men in today's society, with the anger, with the vulnerability to ask for help, with the expression of crying, with um, the awareness that you are not alone. You have your brothers beside you. If you do have brothers, if you have that community, so therefore, if you don't, how do we create that community? How do we seek that community? And how do we thrive together?
And there's such an important part of men's work, which is brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us men, you know, we kind of brought up on this diet of competition. You know, every other
Yeah.
man is your competition. Like, I do a lot of work in the dating world with men and their dating lives and relationships, and often men refer to other men as like the competition, as if, you know, we're all fighting for resources or fighting for women. So for a lot of men to come and do a men's retreat and be with other men that they don't know to start with, and not to see them as like, what's he going to try and do to me? What's he
Yeah.
want to try to take from me, is a really new experience for them.
Uh-huh. Totally. Yeah. Competition is important if it's healthy and it's
Mm,
supportive. And because I feel what I've learned is that men do need competition, but not in the way of like, I want to take you down. Like, why you have to get to me? It's like, let's create competition together so we both can rise together
mm.
and support each other. And that's like that the phrase that I just shared of like look to your left, look to your right. We're all brothers. We are all one. Let's go forward together. And then like everybody moves forward together. It's really cool.
And I was looking through some of your site, and I saw you were talking about the playful warrior.
Yeah.
And you know, this warrior archetype is one that I think men gravitate to a lot, you know, because it makes them feel strong and powerful, you know, and ultimately a lot of men want to feel strong and powerful. But the playful warrior isn't a phrase that I've heard before. You know, I've heard a peaceful warrior, you know, and the silent warrior, but the playful warrior, what does that mean to you, the playful warrior?
Yeah, there's a couple layers to that. It's have you had the opportunity to meet many Kiwis, Māori men?
Not many that I
Okay.
can think of.
Um, or like the general like height of the Māori men are they're quite bigger men.
Mm,
I myself am just a little shorter. But with these men, there's a lot of what I've noticed. There's a lot of playfulness. There's a lot of warmth. There's a lot of nurturing some of the men that embody this playful warrior, and at the same essence, they could really like hey, and really call you forward. And at the same time, so this is part of the my path of like, oh, I really like that part. I really like that part of this vision that I was building for the ideal man for myself. And so it's embodying the archetype of the warrior, strong, protects, provides, and in the same breath, the playful warrior, but embodies their child energy and plays, still gets curious, still enjoys life. And it's like the quote, I'd rather be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the wall. And then when you take it further, when you're a warrior in the garden, you're just having so much fun. You're planting the seeds, watering, nurturing, and there's a level of playfulness with that and creation, playfulness, curiosity, creativity, um, and having fun, being a strong, empowered, protected provider man. And just really, really enjoying playing like in a safe container. Some of the things we do is create containers of exercises with wrestling or just physical contact with other men, but it's still this sense of playfulness, approaching anger and rage with playfulness, Because on the other spectrum, from what I've learned is on the other spectrum of anger and passion, anger and rage is just passion, energy, desiring some type of direction, and also awareness. And it could, that's which I feel is like this playful warrior essence.
When you put it that way, it's like the warrior who's come home, you know, the warrior who's come home back to his family. He still upholds discipline and focus, and even, you know, his own silence, but he just channels that into a different environment, which is, you know, and enjoys his time with other people. It doesn't necessarily have to be serious, doesn't always have to be in battle all the time, but can just like relax and enjoy and nurture himself through being nurtured or nurturing others.
Totally. Yeah, and it's like as you were sharing the story, it's like the image that came to my head was like if we were to paint a picture of like the warrior chieftain trying to train his son, but he's in this warrior mode and like really kind of, I guess, being a little harder on his child, because he may be just more in this warrior, like, do this, you gotta fight this, you gotta train this. But then when he comes down into this, really surrenders to this playful warrior and meets his child as a father and as a warrior, then the child may have this more enriching experience of how he's going to approach that warrior archetype, his physical body, his physical expression, his anger. So yeah.
And I find playfulness is something a lot of men really struggle with, actually. You know, they're so I look at it a bit like I spoke to someone yesterday about breath work and how, you know, a lot of men gravitate towards, say, Wim Hof, right? Because Wim Hof is like shouting at you, he's like, go faster, go harder, go deeper, you know. It's all those kind of words that the masculine kind of responds to. And I also, because I do a lot of stuff with men in the relationships and dating, and I'm always like, you need to be more playful on your dates, or you want to be more playful in your relationship with your partner. Like, you want to lead, but you also need this playfulness, because playfulness creates a beautiful spark. Sometimes men are like, what do you mean playfulness? Like, how do I be playful? You know, I can't, you know, it's one of those things, like, how do you even, you know, because I've even thought to myself, God, I'd love to run a workshop on playfulness, but like, how would I even put this into like theory and slides? Because it's just it's just a feeling of being able to make anything into a sort of play, you know, like anything can be like a type of play. And I really love this energy for men to feel more of, is this more playfulness in their life, because it brings a relaxation, it brings a joy, you know, a laughter. It removes the seriousness from everything, you know, because, you know, as much as life is serious, right, and it's an important endeavor, it doesn't have to be taken seriously in a way in which we're like, I'm going to be really focused, I'm going to take everything really literal. It's like, I can be a clown sometimes, and I can also be, you know, diligent and focused when necessary.
Totally. Yeah, a big part of like how I am approaching the work with men is because of having a energetic healing foundation. So I believe in magic. I do believe in the magical kingdom and all of the shiny, sparkly things. And so magic is like incorporated with this idea of playfulness, because of like all the, I guess, speak a little metaphysical and esoterical, or like all the fairies, all of the like elementals of the spirits, they like to play. And so like my intention is always bringing in ceremony and the sense of like all the sparkly things that maybe the women's circles have and all that, all the beautiful like flowers, and also inviting that into the space to soften men, and then bring in the playfulness. Another exercise I work with is primal animal activation. We facilitate a sacred rite ceremony. And I remember one event, like we had just quite a big, bit of an intellectual day, because we're like also learning like another language, the actions that go with it, and then emotionally working on our own story, and then we learn the tools on how to support it. And then we go into a big session of authentic relating and how to communicate safely. And there's a quite specific communication technique. So there's a lot of intellectual activity, mental activity at the same time. And we had our sacred rage ceremony, and I was like, I had all these things that I wanted to say, and I was like, actually, I don't think this is what serves. So all I did was do a circle of candles, put on some tribal music. All the men came in from dinner, like really like talkative, and I just stood there and just waited for them to like arrive and what's gonna happen because I didn't say anything, and it was like dim lighting. I went into the circle and I just at some of the men, and they're like, oh. I rolled that one, and then first man that came through was like, okay, I guess this is what I meant to do. And then he came in and started to roar. And so it invited this like playfulness of the warrior archetype, of the primal and the animal activation of the body. And then we were just in this approach of really feeling our emotion and our anger with playfulness. And then all the men were like roaring at each other. And so it just like primal and animal somatic physical activation invites the playfulness to really tap into the physical body. But I think that's a really good idea to do a playfulness workshop.
Yeah. But I love it is.
Yeah.
But I do love what you said there about the animal activation, the roaring, the letting the rage out. And also adding that tinge of playfulness. And you know, what I'm really getting is like many men have this anger that sits in their stomach, right? That they need to release. They've never had the opportunity. You've never had the opportunity to scream anywhere because, you know, they have to keep a lid on it. You have to all be quiet. We've all been told from when we were 5 years old, don't make too much noise, don't take up too much space.
Yeah.
You know, and when invited into a circle to roar, to let that pass through, to let all that kind of memory come through the cells into sound out, it's actually quite challenging, you know, because it's like I'm, you know, we've had this message for, you know, whatever number of years. It could be 30, 40 years for some men. It's like, don't make too much noise. You know, maybe their mothers told them not to make any noise. Then their teachers told them, and then their wives told them, and then even their own children might have told them, you know. And to be given an opportunity to make that sort of noise could bring up a lot of that rage.
Yeah.
But to add the playfulness to it, it gives it that tinge of you're allowed to come out, but it won't come out and then be expressed as rage against other people. It just be allowed to kind of come out and go into the air and to smile with it and, you know, take the blessing of letting it go.
Yeah, it's the safety of expressing anger and rage that society has created, that it's unsafe to express anger. Therefore, the viewpoint on anger and rage is, oh, I shouldn't. It's not good to do that. And so, inviting playfulness gives safety. I can roar. I can scream. I can get down on all fours and be like a lion and also look at another man deep in the eyes and roar. And I feel safe. I know that he feels safe. I know that he accepts it. There's a really powerful container. That safety of creating a safe container, and then also learning one of the big things is learning how to be safe to express that raw. And like there's a little resistance at the start, and then once they're fully lent into it, then they may have it forever. Like, oh, I just need a roll. Oh, I just need to cry. So that's one of the beautiful tools and takeaways that I've noticed that men have taken is like, just be wet dressed and roll. And that safety that they've experienced that they now can take with them outside of the container in the retreat.
Yeah. And on that, how do you, it's a question that comes up for me sometimes I get asked by people is, you know, how can men allow that sort of emotion, that sort of anger or rage? How can they give that a space to be expressed in their, you know, everyday lives when they're at home, in their, you know, in their normal week? How can they create a space of time or even a physical space where they can express that so it doesn't kind of sit and fester in the way that we often allow it to?
yeah, there's a couple techniques that I share. Um, first technique is grab a pillow,
Mm,
scream into the pillow.
yeah.
Another technique, a deeper technique, is if you have the blessings to be around nature, is to go to a tree, ask for permission, ask for support, and scream at the tree. This is
Mm,
one of the beautiful things that nature can support us with, is they also can help mitigate and support, because trees in nature have been here for a long time and they've been transmuting lots of energy for eons. And so asking for permission from a tree that you may trust, that you like really connect with, and asking support to help mitigate that energy is really also supportive. If you have a community of brothers um, that you trust that are also doing similar work, um, you can ask them, like, hey, I feel like I have a lot of emotion and anger that I need to express. I'm wondering if we can create a container where maybe you guys can hold me down, and so I can feel safe and you feel safe, and then just give me an opportunity to scream it out and rage it out, and then afterwards um, whisper positive affirmations to me and my body. And so this is where we can start incorporating brotherhood and community together, and just requesting support. Um, yeah,
those are
and just
beautiful.
yeah, just yeah, that's those are a couple of techniques.
No, those are beautiful and so necessary, because it's so common for us just to bottle up. I'm feeling this thing. I'm not allowed to be angry. A lot of us have had some story about being angry. Like I definitely know for myself, there was a lot
Mm-hmm.
around not being angry and not having any outlet for it. And I think science has started to catch on to this idea that when we do suppress anger and frustration, these things start to build up in our system. They start to build up, and they call us physical ailments as well. Heart disease, heart attacks. All sorts of things start to come through just not feeling and not expressing our emotion, and over time they build up in our system. So these techniques are wonderful they're actually preventative medicine.
Totally, yeah. And like a part of my story is like, as I've started sharing this work, is like, why am I comfortable with anger and rage? And because of the opportunity to express Haka throughout my whole life. And like, even though it was like for like whether it's for like the start of a rugby match or for school, just that channel and that opening that happened throughout the whole expression of the Haka also released parts that may have been there that was like just like hiding within the somatic body. And like, okay, cool. Like they'll just like kind of catch on to that channel and that energy that was being released. Um, and so sometimes it's just roaring and other parts may unlock. And then we just start to create this vessel that's empty and light and euphoric. And you're right, like anger and rage and frustration have a certain resonance that create tension within the body. Um, and it's like, and it just really creates a lot of tension because of the resonance of the anger and rage, which, like you said, creates physical ailments to the body.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
You earlier you mentioned authentic relating
Yeah.
as a one of the modalities you use. Could you explain to the listeners like what is authentic relating? I know it's like like there's a structure to it.
Yeah, there's a couple layers, couple ways that we work with it. There's a somatic experience, and then there's also a communication and energetic experience. A couple of the exercises that I facilitate is embodied dance, partner dancing, and specifically originating from the style of contact improvisation, which is the partner technique. And so I guess one of the base layers of authentic relating is as simple as eye gazing and feeling into what may or may not be discomfort in that experience of eye gazing. Taking it to another layer is dancing with another man without words, because dance is what I've learned is more of a feminine expression. And so inviting the element of dance invites a deeper layer of vulnerability, which naturally allows us to step into our feminine energy of receptivity. And so there's an authentic relating somatically and authentic relating with our feminine parts of our energy. And then also within communication is learning techniques on how to inquire without interrogating, like, why do you do this? Why do you do that? I'm like, oh, what I feel I'm learning about you is this. Oh, that really makes me feel this. And then also how to listen and how to reflect and how to be a sacred mirror. Oh, I hear you saying this. And so a big part is for what I've learned is giving tools to men to, like, sometimes we don't need to fix it. We just need to reflect. As simple as that. There's no need to fix this. We just need to reflect what is being shared. If we're in the dynamic of the relationship with the feminine counterpart, sometimes the feminine just desires to be heard and nothing needs to be fixed. And so practicing the skill of being a sacred mirror and reflecting. Even in saying that myself, I still mess up in that area sometimes. When emotion arises, tools and techniques may go out the window. And so yeah, the invitation is different ways of how to inquire, different ways of communicating and learning about other, and different ways on how to listen and how to reflect and how to be that sacred mirror. So yeah, those are the two parts, with the physical and somatic experience, and then the verbal communication experience.
Mm. I had it down on my sheet here. I was wondering how you brought your dance experience into the work, but to dance with another person is quite an intimate experience, to dance with someone, and to dance with one man, to dance with another man. There must be a lot of I'm just thinking for myself that there must be a lot of like internal bodily resistance that starts to come up for them, like what, and it really comes from meaning. What do we make it mean? I'm with this man and maybe he's touching me, maybe I'm holding his hand and I'm following what he does. Like, what does this mean about who I am? Like, maybe I'm feeling some sort of pleasure and enjoyment. What does that mean? I think this is where so much of our kind of reactivity comes from, is that we have feelings and we're like, what the fuck do I do with this? What does this mean? What is the meaning of these feelings? And we feel that it means something that we don't want it to mean. And for a lot of them, that is almost the work, isn't it? Is being with that feeling and actually just staying in the dance, or eye gazing as well, because I know from experience that for a lot of men, staring at another man is actually a completely new experience. Like, never looked at a man for so long, never being so close to a man in a way that wasn't a fight or some sort of physical not necessarily altercation, but like a physical sport, for instance, but just two men looking at each other, looking into his soul, seeing the love in his eyes or in his being. It's a very new experience, and it can bring up a lot of emotions.
Totally. It's such a fascinating experience to witness all the time. And then be like, wait, what? And also, like, even before, like, I really leaned into this work is when I would teach partner dancing to couples, and because I would dance with the woman, but then I'd also dance with the man as the woman, and I would be like, "This is your first time you dance with the man?" He's like, "Yep." How's it feel? He's like, "It's okay." So yeah, it's really fascinating. What's really fascinating about partner dancing is that, because in the dynamic of partner dancing, there's a leader and there's a follower. There's the masculine and there's the feminine. So it gives a pretty tangible idea on how much do you lead, too much do you push, or do you guide? Do you receive and follow, or are you just also trying to lead? And not being receptive to the suggestion. And so it gives a very tangible idea, physical reference on like pushing and guiding, receiving, being fully receptive, or just back leading. I'm like, no, I want to do it this way. And so that's like, yeah, it's this really beautiful experience of creating that platonic intimacy between men, leaning in to very tangible references of the masculine and the feminine, giving men opportunity to surrender and follow if they do. And then adding this concept of like, because I also put like emotional music on, and then we just watch the men just like flow in and out. And like you said, it's like a dance between emotion. Does the emotion lead the whole time, or you having a collaboration of lead and follow? And so it's like dancing with your emotion, and that's like you said, it's like most of the work, not just between with men but also women, is just like, how do we dance with our emotion, and experience our emotion together without ignoring our emotion, or letting it lead the whole dance. So yeah, one more thing I like to share is another custom that I bring in for my culture is we have a greeting that we do, which is nose press on the forehead. And this is how we greet each other, the traditional greeting that is still very well used. I still use it with my elders and my brothers, and this is how we greet each other. And it's a touch of the nose and the forehead. And this is how I open my containers. Any experience, and it's I didn't realize when I first started facilitating it that it is a very vulnerable, intimate experience, but it's something that I'm just used to. And so when I heard reflection back of like, yeah, I don't know, we're gonna get like go there straight away with like, this is how we're gonna open the container. We're gonna press noses and foreheads together, and we're gonna breathe in 3 times together. And just that somatic experience of that intimacy between 2 men, just and like, because if like you imagine like if there's like the yoga shala or the space, I'm there, I welcome in the first man, they're in like a single file, and then as I greet the first man, he comes next to me, and then we also like creates this train of greeting of the men, and I just like boom, just drops everybody in real quick, with the vulnerability, the intimacy, and just the energetic containers really set with this intimate greeting and sharing of breath. Because a little backstory to that story is when, in my culture, when man first created woman, he made her out of clay, and then he pressed his nose and forehead and breathed life into her, like and 3 breaths. And so it's also this layer of connecting with our feminine, and then dropping into the softness of our heart and our spirit and our being.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And that sort of intimacy between men is, we often just assume it's homoerotic, really, like it just to name it. It's like, oh, if 2 men are too close together, there's the whole thing, especially amongst some cultures of like, any time you say, oh dude, you look nice, it's like, oh, you look nice, no homo. It's like, but
yeah,
and it's that interesting part there. It's like, okay, why do you as a man need to always announce that you're not homosexual just because you say something nice or you touch your friend or you're close to someone? There's this kind of inbuilt fear that I think we've been socialized into completely to like be scared of being seen as homosexuals, if it's the worst thing we can be. And like creating this intimacy between men just creates a space to realize that it's fine for 2 men to be close together, to be holding hands, to be touching faces, to almost be kissing, because really that's basically where you are. Most men have only ever been that close to other women, in that way, that kind of eye to eye intimacy. So it's, again, it must be, like you said, it dropped people in really deep because they have to face this instantly, and they have to face it again and again and again with different men.
Totally. That's like the total it's totally true. Like it could be received as homoerotic, especially yeah, like I had this um I had the blessing of a gentleman by the name of Shane Mosley come to one of my retreats.
Mm.
And I took a photo with him with that, and then I was also working with trying to see what I could use for promotional purposes. And one of the things was like, oh, I don't know how it's going to be received.
Mm.
And I was like, that's fair enough. Like it totally makes sense. And so yeah, don't know how it's going to be received. So yeah, and it's I've received some of that as well, like in social media. I'm like, that's okay. It totally makes sense. Like it's super intimate. They are almost kissing. Um, and there's something really, what I've learned is there's something really safe when you experience men that are a bit more platonic and hands around the shoulder, and just more engaging physically. And it creates a lot of safety and relaxing and releasing. Um, and also just experiencing a hug, like a 3-second man hug
Mm.
is like, yeah, it's just really warming every time.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Because that intimacy, men really crave intimacy, I believe, with other men. It's why I think men love contact sports, because they get to have that touch with other men. And then, in sport, it's kind of a safe space, or, wrestling, for instance, is another place
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it's really fine, because you see young boys when they're young and they're little, they're always wrestling around or sitting on top of each other, pushing each other. And it's odd that as we get into adulthood, because we think we shouldn't be doing this, we stop
yeah,
this intimacy that actually really
totally.
helps us bond with other men,
Yes.
creates that brotherhood that we also talked about before. It's like it helps us feel safe. As you said, it's like, I can relax here. This other
Mm.
man is safe enough for me to touch, and he feels
Yeah,
safe enough for me to touch him.
yeah,
Because when we're always at arm's length, especially if you think about the corporate world, it literally is, everyone is kept at arm's length. The most is a handshake, because that
yeah.
is to arm's
Arms
length.
length. Yeah,
And it does create this like atmosphere and energy of competition, where we're
mm.
always going to be far away from each other. We're always keeping a safe distance between each other. When
Mm-hmm.
actually that distance probably doesn't create safety. It probably creates the opposite for us in our day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. So interesting you reference sport. Because like a lot of my circles over the last 2 years have been surrounded by musicians, ceremonial, more people. And so like over the last 6 to 7 months, I was like, I need something else at the moment. I need some sport. I need some but sport with men that are a healthy competition. And so I started diving back into social sports, basketball. Wow, it felt so good just to kind of get a little nudgy with the other team, but that's still safe. And like at the end of like if they score a point or I score a point, it's a good job, like really good.
Mm.
Um, and so I played rugby last weekend for like the first time in like 9 years, and I was like just telling everybody, yeah, I'm just gonna go hug men aggressively. It's gonna be great. And yeah, the sensation that I felt afterward, I felt so complete with honoring part of my masculine energy, essence of that physical nature of the roughness that we would experience as young boys, but also in a safe container. When I like tackle someone or I get tackled, like that would help me up or I'd help them up.
Mm.
Um, and it was, yeah, I felt really complete after that. Just like really supporting that part of my masculine essence of that physical contact in a safe container and still be very warming and heartwarming. So yeah, just wanted to share that.
Yeah. It's funny as you talked about that. I really thought to myself, actually, like, how much that a man can miss that. We play sport a lot as young men and adolescent men. In the UK, it's mainly people grow up on a diet of football, and I still played football into my kind of mid to late 20s, even still playing five-a-side. And as you were talking about the rugby, I was like, God, yeah, I really do miss that. I miss the little, we play on kind of cage football, so it's like you kind of miss the cheeky barge into the side of the
Yeah,
cage
yeah.
on somebody, or the poor tackle. Some picture says sorry about that. It's cool.
Yeah,
Getting hit with the ball and then afterwards, shaking hands and be like, it was a good game. And you missed that kind of
yeah,
rough and tumble of the
yes,
sport.
yeah, totally. And it's like you said, like it's as we go into an adult, it's like, oh no, that's for kids. Like we don't do that anymore. And so like inviting that into men's containers of that playfulness of the rough and tumble of the physical nature. Um, I really witnessed this energy that ignites in men. They're like, oh yeah, and it just like really, in some sense, like grounds them into the experience, allows them to feel their body, allows them to also receive the other man, um, and has this sense of competition and challenge. And yeah, it's just all beautiful parts that what I've learned that the masculine essence, energy, desires to experience.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And yeah, and it's like I've got a 24-hour men's retreat at the end of this month, and I'm starting it with like the more like the first 2-3 hours of like warrior exercises and really tapping into the physical body. Because what I feel like I've learned is once we create safety with our own masculine essence, and that's like supported, honored, nourished, then we can allow ourselves to soften and then start to really receive and build that receptivity of whatever else comes after that. And so, yeah, just it's a really powerful, simple experience that we used to do with just playing rough and tumble, being boys, and yeah.
It's something we lose. We really lose it as we get serious about life. As you said, we all need a little bit more of the playful warrior in this.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Totally.
And it's a question that I've asked a few men that I've spoken to, facilitate men's work. So there's this amazing women's work that's happening with women.
Yeah.
And men's work that happens with men. And I wonder what your opinions were, thoughts on like bringing people together in kind of joint work and joint ceremony to even just to witness, each other in each other's work, to see that vulnerability, see the strength in both sides. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I think it is powerful. So one thing that I'm also working towards is a co-ed experience with my partner, but she does also women's work and also men's work. I also work with women as well. And so the idea is to work with the single sex and really honor and work on that wounded masculine and the wounded father, and then swap sexes, and then also give the woman the experience of working on the wounded masculine and the wounded father, and the men the experience of working on the wounded mother, the wounded feminine, and then starting to create integrative exercises where we start building together. I think it's really powerful. I also, on one-on-one, I generally like refer, like you should also go work with my partner. She's great. And there's just the, it hits different when there's like, if you work with a female practitioner that really embodies that divine mother, that nurturer, and then it gives, really my own experience that I've experienced is like I just really softened into the boy and really rested. There's a when I first worked with my partner, it's an experience that I had. I knew there was some emotion that I just knew I couldn't quite access. And I was like, I need support from the feminine. Because I had like prior to that year, I was working with a couple of men that's who I just resonated with, but I knew that like, I need to work with a woman to help support this part. And when it happened, oh man, my whole body just went at complete rest. And I softened, and it was like the warrior in me was like, I can go to sleep. And then I released this emotion. And what I learned was like, what she shared was like, some of the practices of the geisha within the Japanese culture was they created this container for where men could come in and experience complete rest. So then they can have experience that restorative energy and heal. And so yeah, there's a huge power in the feminine, women working with men and men working with women, men providing that safety, that protection to the woman that may have experienced the shadow parts of the masculine and been hurt by the men. And same for the men, feeling that nurture that they may not have gotten and experiencing that emotional availability of holding in the womb. So I think the having the single sexes and then bringing them together is really, really powerful, because there's many different layers to healing, and there's like a 360 5D approach, and just really being able to create that container of like, oh, you should go see this woman. Oh, actually, you should work with this man. Oh, this is a great experience that you should experience. And so yeah, generally refer on like, man, you should also do at least one session with a female practitioner, at least. Women also should do at least one session with a man. So yeah, I really believe in that, and the power that can create in this convergence of the male and the female, the masculine and the feminine, and the healing that we can have together.
No, it is so powerful, because we do have these stories we have about, men carry a story about the feminine, women carry some story about the masculine, and to be seen and to see, a feminine being in their power, and also to be held gently, for a lot of men, it's like a really revolutionary experience. And the vice versa is true. Like, I've worked with a few women, and it always really blows me away that they're like, wow, you're just really here, it's just the presence alone for them is a healing experience, and to be able to share certain stories, and for me to just sit and listen and be with that. Like, for many women, they've never had the experience of a man really listening to them, really being present, really, seeing them as they are. Like, even that, just to be asked questions about what they're feeling, what they need, what they want, what they'd like for the future. It's like those simple things can really, really create healing experiences.
Totally. Yeah, that's it. It's just what I've learned is, especially an experience with my partner, is just presence. Being there with the questions of empathy, and really hearing and reflecting and feeling, which invites presence into the moment. And so yeah, it's such a really, really powerful place to be, and to allow women to receive that. Like you said, allow men to be to have that gentleness. Yeah, it reminded me of an exercise that both my partner and I share, is creating a container where you either rock your certain partners and you rock them, and just gently rock them. And I was like, oh man, imagine. And it's also really powerful for men to have that experience with another man and just rock them, and just allow them to breathe into that experience of being gently rocked. Yeah, that word gently is exactly like a beautiful encapsulation of what I was trying to express, is that gentleness, that gently of the feminine, of the mother.
It's a really beautiful exercise, just to give them experience of being just held. It's like really held, there gently, softly, tightly. But just to, as you were talking about before, to rest, to relax, and relax the energy. Wow, beautiful, brother. It's been, really weaved and danced between the topics and the parts of Menswork and your own culture. Yeah, what a beautiful conversation. And I'm sure many of the listeners are, wondering like, where are your retreats? How can they come and work with you? Yeah, please let us know how can people come to retreats and how can people work with you?
Yeah, so I am based in Nicaragua, Central Latin America. We'll be here for quite a while. And so I'll be running experiences here for quite a while. I have my 5-day retreat at the end of March, 28th of March to the 1st of April. And it's a lot of what we've just discussed in terms of working with Haka, emotional intelligence, authentic relating, and how to communicate emotions safely. We also dive into life vision and purpose, um, and also experience a different ceremony every night, and also the value of morning routine. So that's one of my more bigger programs. It's like very jam-packed. And then, yeah, you can just reach me on Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram at the Panda Shaman, is my personal. Or you can follow my men's Instagram, which is Tama, Tama underscore Tane, Tane, which means boy and man. And so like my mission is this initiation and this rite of passage from boy to man, and creating transformational containers that energetically allow you to step into those parts of maturity. Yeah, you can see my website, www.tomatane.com, has all the information about what we do in the retreat. And yeah, just get curious, reach out. I love to connect, and just to share her story. Yeah, if anybody is curious about anything or have any questions for me, please. I am an open book. I'm an open Instagram, if you will. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother. Yeah, I'll be all those details will be below in the show notes, listeners, if you want to, so you can just click through.
Beautiful.
It's all just down there. So yeah, I want to say a huge thank you to you, Cyrus, for your energy, for your time, and your beautiful words and sharing your wisdom and your experience.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for your softness and your gentleness. I really, really appreciate being open to allowing me to come onto your podcast and speak to you and speak to your community. And thank you for your softness. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. And listeners, if you have taken anything away from today's episode, something you've been able to implement, maybe there's some of the techniques we talked about relating or maybe releasing anger that you've been able to use, please reach out to myself or Cyrus and just say what you got, what you took away or anything you've learned from the episode. It's always incredibly interesting to hear back from people what they take away from the episode. So don't be shy.
Please don't be shy.
Oh, thank you, Cyrus, and thank you, listeners. I'll be back next week with another episode. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.